Hi viewers, my name is Ben Gray. I'm an amateur citizen journalist living in East Bristol, where I've lived for the last 20 years. This is my YouTube channel at Newsworthy Publications, which is dedicated to exposing egregious, wicked corruption within the judiciary, the police, the CPS, and civilians, both in Bristol and in the High Court in London. This is a quick round robin video to expose a one Victoria Newton, who's the editor in chief of the Sun newspaper, as the child abusing, kidnapping, torturing, sexually assaulting, evil witch that she clearly is. And this is evidence to support, she's just one more nail in the coffin of this once great country in terms of colluding with the CPS and the judges and police officers that I'm complaining about being, having colluded in child abuse, sexual assault, kidnapping, and attempted murder. As I say, you name it. And in a minute, I'm about to play you a video. A sound recording of that I made of a conversation I had with an anonymous news desk receptionist, presumably a reporter of some description, who works for the Sun. I made this phone call on the 8th of April at about 3:30 in the afternoon. And you can hear from the conduct of this man, as soon as I mentioned that I've got evidence of police collusion and judicial collusion in torture and child abuse and sexual assault and so forth, he becomes even more aggressive and revoltingly unpleasant than he was when he was initially speaking to me. There's no interest in any evidence that I have to support my allegations, and indeed you'll notice. In fact, what I'll do is I'll play the recording now. You can hear what he has to say, and then I'll come back with a few final comments before concluding the video. Colluded in by Judge Adrian Fulford. I've got evidence online that proves everything I'm saying to the hilt. And Judge Adrian Fulford may be of interest to you because he's just been given the Rudakubana case, the investigation into why he was slipped through the net and all that. So he will be a high-profile case anyway. But were you aware that Judge Adrian Fulford has apologised for having connections to Tom O'Carroll, the paedophile? He's actually been convicted of paedophilia, and he was a member of PI, Paedophile Information Exchange, which during the 70s, he was campaigning on lowering the age of consent, on free exchanges of child pornography. And that was his campaign under PI. And Adrian Fulford knew what he stood for, and he was part of his gay rights campaigner, ultra woke kind of justification. And he fraternized with him. He was having meals with him. He knew everything he stood for. And now this judge is still sitting on the bench. He's still sitting on sexual offence cases or paedophilia cases. He sat on a case even after he had to apologise in the Guardian. You can see it online with Joshua Rosenberg. And he's colluding in that. He's been given this case involving myself. My name's Ben Gray. I've got a YouTube channel at Newsworthy Publications, and I've been trying to get interest with the story for other connected cases of similar allegations with other High Court judges. No one will pay any attention to me. I get virtually turfed out of my ear if I go to the BBC. So it's basically what it seems to be is the papers are scared because these are big names into the judiciary, and they rather either that or they're just completely mad woke. Either way, um, this is going right onto the noses. I've got everything online. I've represented myself in dozens of cases. No lawyer will touch me. No barrister will touch me. So I have to go. Have you got like a sort of dossier information or something? Would Did I mention the video? I've got a, yeah. Can you? I've just sent an email to yourselves. Can you find that, or can I give it straight to your inbox, and then you can? I'll give you the link. Have you sent it to exclusive at the-sun.co.uk? I've done that, yeah, but I'm down. As I say, I'm chasing up because I've already written to the Sun. I've written to every other paper in terms of other judges. Now it's entirely up to you. I'm just going to say, this is you would want to be hot off the press of this. If I've got evidence of this nature, when a judge is supposed to be the safe pair of hands, and I'm going to go out there with the editor. I'm looking at your editor's name. I'm going to be down there on the 2nd of May when what's his name? Russell Brand is there to appear. So there's going to be all the papers, and I'm going to be there with a loudspeaker. And every allegation I'm making against Judge Fulford, I will make against your editor. And can I have your name while I'm speaking to you?
Well, no, not if you're
Ah, yeah, there you go. There you go. Because that is
come on the phone and threaten people. You don't.
no, it's not. You're threatening me. You're colluding. If I've got evidence that I'm being tortured and sexually assaulted by the police with the judicial permission in full view of videos, and you're saying you couldn't give a monkeys. If I've got evidence, if this judge is connected to a convicted paedophile, he's had to apologise for being connected to a convicted paedophile, and now he's got charge of the Rudakubana case. And so that's you threatening not just me, but the public. And I'm going to scream to the rooftops. And I want to see you in court. I've got online every single judge not everyone, but most of them online stating these judges are colluding in child abuse, sexual assault, perverting justice. They haven't taken it down. No one's pursued me in the courts. If this was untrue, that I should be in court for defamation, never mind making false criminal allegations, which carries up to life imprisonment. And I'll say it in any courtroom you want to put me in. So if you want to say I'm threatening you and get the police to come around and sexually assault me and torture me, it's hardly going to make any difference because they're doing it anyway. So if that's what you think is a threat, who is the threat? And it's up to you. I'm giving you isn't it fair that I give you the chance of taking an interest now? I'll shut up now. I'll listen to anything you have to say. All I get is fobbed off, rudeness, insults, threats, masked or otherwise, every time I call a member of the press with this story. Is it any wonder that those girls wouldn't want to ring the press when they're being handed around like pieces of meat in Rotherham? This is your fault. You have the blood on your hands for all that went on. And you should, if I'm talking about, if there are connections that you can check online in 2 minutes between Judge Adrian Fulford and had to apologise for paedophile information. So why is that judge getting this case? You think that's an accident? You don't honestly think that Starmer is pulling strings to ensure the wokest, most dodgy, and they've got stuff on him, haven't they? They've got all this evidence on him, if not from my case, from the paedophile information exchange. So they doubt if they dig deeper, they'll probably find a lot more if he's got connections to Tom O'Carroll. So they're going to use that to get a nice, easy ride when there's glaring evidence that Starmer was covering up the Rubicavana case, suppressed evidence that he was racially or religiously motivated in order to bang up people who are getting angry about it. I'm going to speak absolutely out and openly. So it's entirely up to you, sir. I'm giving you. It would be unfair for me to go out and accuse you without having given you the chance of a right of response. That's basic fairness. And I've done everything. I've sent it.
I haven't actually had the chance to read anything you said. So if
You
you
could look at the video. Yeah, but you could take an interest. You could say, "I'm going to check. Please send me the link now. I'll look at it. I'll get it, and I'll get back to you." You're fobbing me off. You're just saying you're making it clear you're not interested.
I gave you the email address to send the link to, so please do that. If you have already, we'll get
Well,
that.
that's fine, and that's I tell you. Let's leave at this, Mr. Anonymous, because it's quite cowardly. I'm not anonymous. My name's Ben Gray. Everything, including my home address, can be found online on my YouTube channel at Newsworthy Publications. I'm sure you've got a good memory if you're involved in newsprint. At Newsworthy Publications, shove that into your YouTube search. You'll find all the videos there. Okay, I won't say any more. You've got my. I've now given you my email address, but I'll just give it to you again: benjgray@hotmail.co.uk, and you'll have it already now because I sent a video earlier, if not weeks ago. And if you don't respond by the 2nd of May, I will be in London and I will find out the name of your editor. Can't find your name out, so you can hide behind your editor's name, and I will accuse him because you speak for your editor. You are an agent of the paper. I've asked you to put, if you suppress it from the editor, to just by employing you, he's as bad as you are. Okay, so that's fine, and I will be out there. Every allegation, sexual assault, homosexual assault, paedophilia, everything, okay? Because that's what you're doing. If you're colluding in, why would you need me to give you the story about the Adrian Fulford case, for instance? Anonymous? That's a fair question, isn't it? Why aren't you interested in that? You don't need me to send you any videos or documents. You can find out the Joshua Rosenberg story on The Guardian, and you can find out straight away. Why wouldn't that be headline news? That the judge who had to formally apologise on a British paper for having connections to paedophile information exchange, they're giving that to evidence of a child, the ultimate child abuser in British history, almost among them. and you're giving it to that particular judge. You'd think that Keir Starmer, that is a coincidence, because Keir Starmer's life is on the line. He could be going to jail for cover up, couldn't he?
You can believe what you want, or you can believe how the country works however you want. But I need to get back to
Oh,
work.
it's the country. You're now the great. Oh, that's right. You're a paedophile, mate. You get off the line, you paedophile. So there we have. This is what a general member of the public can expect if they're complaining that they've been the victim of any form of wrongdoing by the police or the judiciary or the CPS in this country. He points out at the beginning that I've got a video documentary verifying and validating my allegations. And then about 5 minutes into the conversation, or 3 or 4 minutes into when I've been talking, he interrupts to ask me if I've got any evidence, and I should send it to him. I've just pointed out to him that I've actually got a video documentary which provides all the evidence that could possibly be required, proving my allegations. And you can hear his aggressive tone throughout. He's absolutely not interested. He's got no humanity, no suggestion that he can possibly empathise with what it is to have, if these allegations are true, and he hasn't decided, because he hasn't looked at any evidence to decide whether they're true or false. But he doesn't care about any of the human feelings that would be involved in talking to a complete stranger about making such allegations. And of course, the threat to the public by people of the press, reporters, deliberately taking no interest in such evidence, and of course, therefore, colluding in the very complaints that are made of. Because the only people that the High Court judges, people who are accountable to no one, whose decisions are final, who cannot be complained about to anybody else in most cases, because a High Court judge will deal with what will usually be a final decision in any complaint about the police or so forth. Um, is the only people that hold the effectively hold the judges to account are the free press, but the press are not free, as this conversation with this man has made clear. He's such a coward. He doesn't even provide his actual name, so he hides behind anonymity, and he's aggressive to the point of threatening in terms of his lack of interest in the evidence that there may exist, that my allegations that Judge Adrian Fulford in this particular case has colluded in sexual assault, perverting justice, kidnapping, and so forth. Um, and he the second point I make about Adrian Fulford was that in any event, Adrian Fulford has form, because he has had to apologise for being connected to paedophile Tom O'Carroll, who in the and I will show up the story from the Guardian, from Joshua Rosenberg of the story, and it will come up on the screen in a moment, or now, and you will see that here this judge has had to formally apologise, cap in hand, for having been connected to Tom O'Carroll, who is now a convicted paedophile. And at the time that Judge Adrian Fulford knew him, he was a close colleague of his in terms of um, Tom O'Carroll being a campaigner for paedophile information exchange, otherwise known as PI, which sought to lower the age of consent for children, and allow the free exchange of child pornography amongst adults. He was advocating on that ticket at the time that Judge Adrian Fulford knew him. So, as far as I can make out from Judge Adrian Fulford's excuses in his reason, in his sort of half-hearted apology for having connection to Tom O'Carroll, doesn't wash, because it doesn't make any sense. He says Judge Adrian Fulford has to protest that he has no uh, he doesn't carry. He's not a fan of child pornography or exploitation of children. He's against it. He says in sort of fairly strong terms. But if that was the case, what was he doing? And how close was he connected to Tom O'Carroll at the time of being connected to him? Because Tom O'Carroll, because was advocating on a particular ticket that was unabashedly paedophilic. So how on earth could Tom O'Carroll, Judge Adrian Fulford, have known that that was what Tom O'Carroll stood for, and yet was happy to stand alongside him and share platforms with him and socialise with him, when he knew that he was this revolting figure who stood for and was advocating and wanted to sort of increase effectively uh, the act of paedophilia at large. And my point was to the reporter, as you can hear, is as you heard, is that well, of all the judges that Keir Starmer or whoever is actually pulling the strings to appoint the judge who deals with who's dealing with the scandal surrounding Axel Rudakubana. Why have they chosen this particular judge who's got this particular form in terms of Axel Rudakubana's connection to Axel Rudakubana? Sorry, he's got this particular connection to Tom O'Carroll, and had to apologise in terms of that. So he's already got some sort of shady connections, and they appoint this particular judge of all the judges who wouldn't have such connections to a convicted paedophile and wouldn't have had to have apologised to the Guardian for or to the general public for having these connections, and yet they chose him. And what does that not? It must surely imply that, or that there must be some concern that there's more to the Tom O'Carroll connection with Judge Adrian Fulford than is simply canvassed in the Joshua Rosenberg Guardian report. I mean, after all, to what extent did Judge Adrian Fulford, for instance, connive or fraternize with Tom O'Carroll? Were they lunch mates? Did they dine out together? Did they spend much time together? I mean, if they shared a platform on a sort of a campaign of the sort that Tom O'Carroll and Judge Adrian Fulford shared, then that would suggest that they spent a lot of personal time together and potentially were close friends. There's no proper examination of that in Joshua Rosenberg's report. But the main point is, of course, or one of the main points is, well, of course, when my complaints, my appeal in terms of my connection to Judge Adrian Fulford was that I was complaining of being the victim of a homosexual assault and kidnapping by the police in November 2021, which I reacted to by striking out and spitting at the officers I complained were sexually assaulting me and kidnapping me. This was dismissed out of hand by Judge Adrian Fulford, who was a retired judge even at this stage, and yet was given my case. And it can be no coincidence, can it, that this man has a shady, seedy history with is both a campaigner for homosexual causes because he can be found on YouTube banging the drum for his, for judges coming out of the closet, and so he's a politically active homosexual whose politically active activities have included him spending a lot of time with a convicted paedophile. And so on the one hand, why did I end up with this seedy, low-life, corrupt judge? And on the other hand, why has Keir Starmer, whoever pulled the strings to have the Rudakubana case examined, and how Rudakubana came to have slipped through the net so many times in terms of uh, um, uh, getting to the stage where he carried out his atrocities, and he was well known to the authorities and the Prevent campaign and so forth. This is what Judge Adrian Fulford has been appointed to examine. And he's the last person because he's the least independent. He's the most politically active and the seediest, most dodgy judge it could be possible to imagine. Of all the judges, as I say, of all the judges that the government could choose to carry out this investigation or this inquiry, why did they choose a judge who has had to formally apologise for his paedophile connections? And of course, on top of that, we have the fact that the press have made no mention when they've reported the fact. I watched ITV the other night, and they were reporting about the fact that this judge had been appointed to investigate or make inquiries into how Rudakubana managed to slip through the net after so many interventions. And there's no mention when they mentioned Judge Adrian Fulford. Well, it should be pointed out that Judge Adrian Fulford has had to apologise for being closely connected to paedophile Tom O'Carroll. So the press has a great deal of blood on their hands, both in terms of the cover up of the Tom O'Carroll connection with Judge Adrian Fulford, and of course how they're treating me when I'm complaining about my own evidence that can be seen on my own video documentaries. And this anonymous reporter, as I say, so cowardly that he can't even give his own name when he's addressing a member of the public about sensitive issues, makes it clear that he's virtually telling me to piss off. I mean, there's very little difference between he's just slightly more. Indeed, he would be more polite in some senses, and certainly more if he was more direct and honest when if he just told me to piss off rather than do it in so many words, mainly by just being silent and then, pretending that he hasn't heard me when he says, "Have you got any evidence?" When I've just told him about my video documentary. But all of this, as I say, to conclude, it should be put firmly and squarely at the doorstep of Victoria Newton. Victoria Newton is the face. She's the editor in chief, and she's the face of the Sun newspaper. So the conduct of her reporter and that we've heard on this particular telephone call is indicative of the way she runs the paper, which is clearly not to see themselves as any form of investigative, fifth estate or whatever they refer to themselves as, ensuring not just ensuring there is no accountability to those in high office, especially high court judges, but acting effectively as the gatekeepers, as the attack dogs to anybody that dares ring up to try and get public interest or get the public to know about these horrors um, when they attempt to contact the newspaper itself. And of course, I'm a man in late middle age, and I've had nothing. I've dealt with these kind of animals most of my adult life, both within the police force and the courts, and of course in the press. So I do have a rather thick skin, and I treat the treatment that I had received from anonymous reporter that I'm speaking to, and the effectively the attack dog for Victoria Newton, who is herself an attack dog for the crooked villains that run the judiciary in this country. I take it in some senses as a badge of honor, because obviously I'm getting under the skins of these people, if nothing else. But of course, what concerns me, and as a final point to think about, can you imagine? Well, you don't have to imagine. We know that the tens of thousands of girls that were the victim of the rape scandals, in Rotherham and Rochdale, and even my hometown of Bristol, where were the only people that these girls could have gone to, mainly white working class girls, was the press, because obviously the police were doing the ferrying. They were ferrying the girls back and forth to the rape gangs. The social services were up to their necks in it, as we've as there's no dispute now was going on. So the only people that should have been there, well, the two sets of people were either the local politicians, MPs. God knows where they were in all this was going on and still is in some quarters, apparently still going on. But more importantly, potentially, is the free press, because it's the free press that should be there as the last port of call, holding to account anybody in high office, be they a local MP, be they the judge, be they a police officer, etc. But this, I'm fairly sure, I can't be 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure this complete animal, this vile, villainous, cowardly man that I'm speaking to, who speaks on behalf of Victoria Newton effectively, would have treated me in the same way had I been a 12-year-old girl complaining of being the victim of a gang rape from, from a Pakistani rape gang or whatever. They say, don't they? The expression is the rot starts from the head, and this is these people are the rot. You are anybody that wants to go to the press to bring them evidence that there are corrupt judges or corrupt police officers or whoever they may be, are actually going to the very source of the stinking corruption that they want to complain about.